The fallout from Dan Andrews' decision to can the Commonwealth Games continues. His plan was to stage the Games not in Melbourne, which would have been cheaper, but in regional centres, Ballarat, Shepparton, Bendigo. And so all of these local towns hired Commonwealth Games directors on big contracts that went for 3 to 5 years on around $200,000 a year. One contract was signed just weeks before Dan Andrews cancelled the Games. Well, all of those contracts have to be honoured. And so councils are up in arms saying, you know, this is millions of dollars. Ratepayers should not have to pay this. But the state government has stepped in with a $25 million package. So it's not ratepayers picking up the bill, it's taxpayers. You say tomato, I say tomato. Dan Andrews continues with this argument that he's saving Victorians money. He's costing Victorians money by bidding for games he should never have bid for in the first place and making them as expensive as possible by ignoring advice that he was given not to go with the regional strategy. I want to ask you this, Caleb. Do you think this could be the final thing for Dan Andrews? I mean, he gets away with everything. Is this the one that turns people finally against him?
No, I think it would be a cold day in Victoria, and there are many cold days in Victoria, it should be noted, before Daniel Andrews gets pipped in this job. He's basically impervious to criticism. And what he did here, as I've said before, is he used the Commonwealth Games before the election to score political points in the regions, because he said, look at all this money that I'm going to be injecting into the regions. And then after the election, he used it for political points by saying, well, I'm actually going to save money for you people in Victoria because I care more about schools and hospitals, so I'm going to pull it all back. It was all about politics from go to woe. But the amount of money that has to be paid, not only for these people to keep their jobs, and by the way, it sounds like the best job in the world. Like, you've got to do no work and you get full pay. So I'm going back to Victoria tomorrow to try and find myself one of these jobs. But by the time they've paid the $1 billion or so that they're probably going to have to pay in compensation to the Commonwealth Games over in the UK, by the time they've paid all these people out, by the time they've built all the housing and other infrastructure that they've promised they will build anyway, even though the Com Games isn't going to be there, you may as well have staged the bloody thing.
$7 billion to host the Games is starting to sound like a bit of a bargain. But we know that he doesn't do anything until he polls it.
Right.
Until he knows, nah, I'm safe doing this. This guy is completely gutless. We know that every call he ever made throughout COVID, standing behind the podium, serious face, being like, I'm making the hard calls for you guys. We know it was a pile of BS now. He was polling behind the scenes. He polled behind the scenes for this, and you're quite right. He's just now marketed this in such a way as to be like, I'm doing the right thing, and I will not apologise for doing the right thing. And that's all we're ever going to get out of him. I hope there is this inquiry into this, because as much as he just came out and cancelled the whole thing, show us a graph, show us a pie chart, anything to prove to us that this thing suddenly blew out from 2.6 to 7 billion. It's an insult to everyone's intelligence. They do this time and time again. They come out with these grandiose statements, no proof of it whatsoever. During COVID, it was the health advice that everyone's still waiting to see, hide nor hair of. He's done it again. He's gotten away with it. And that's just Dan Andrews' motto.